Good morning and welcome to your Financial Empower Hour. This is Jason Cryderman with Great Lakes Investment Advisors here on a Monday morning as we record this show. Mr. Tony Shore, our listeners, our viewers, you're catching this on a Sunday, probably almost a week after our recording. Tony and I just talked about it before. Here we are, November 17th as we record. So it's probably November 23rd, Thanksgiving weekend, as you're listening to or viewing this show for the first time, or one of the recordings after that. But Tony and I both this weekend or this Monday, we're feeling a little bitter, aren't we, Tony? We're feeling a little blah, little bitter. Both of our teams, our college teams, myself, Michigan State, and then our pro football teams. Of course, I'm with the Lions. Tony Shore, you're over there in Minneapolis, Minnesota, a true diehard Vikings fan. What the heck happened this weekend?
Oh my goodness.
Spartans, to your Vikings, to my Lions, it was not a fun weekend.
No, it was bad. It was I don't use bad words, but it was a bad show this weekend for all our football teams. I will tell you what, I watched that Lions game and I thought they would have that. I thought, oh, the Lions can do this. Goff is great. Wow, what a mess. What a cluster. That was a big mess.
So and it was a late game, right? I mean, it was Sunday night game.
Yeah.
Carson, my boy, said he told him, hey, if you get your room clean after dinner, we said get your room clean, take a shower, make sure your homework's done, and you can stay up at least till halftime, maybe a little bit later, depending on how the game's going. Maybe even see the end of the game as long as you get your butt right to bed. Well, it was right about halftime, and he was just like, he was sick to his stomach, and he said, Dad, I can't watch anymore. Like this, what's going on? Like Jared Goff does not look like Jared Goff.
No,
the defense doesn't. The receivers, the running backs, that was not a normal Detroit Lions football team.
Yeah, even the announcers were kind of flummoxed.
Yeah,
like what's going on? This isn't Jared Goff. What's going on? He's not even throwing to the receivers. Where was he throwing that ball? The announcers were just like, wow. I mean, talk about a low score. I mean, neither team was looking too great. The offense for a while there. I mean,
they weren't. It was a defensive battle. Well, in the wind. I mean, you look at the temperature and the wind they had. And they showed, the number of attempted field goals and attempted point in warm-up. So the guys were missing brutally. And I truly think that negatively impacted not only the kicking game, but definitely the passing game. But I tell you what, Goff is a little bit of wind. Their quarterback wasn't having that kind of difficulties with his passes.
No.
And as you mentioned, Tony, Goff wasn't just missing, a little higher. He was flat out missing that side of the field. Like I couldn't believe it. The old saying, when you can't hit a broadside of a barn, it was, and it makes you wonder, what was he doing that on purpose? I wouldn't think any professional athlete would do that on purpose, but then again,
you hear like it. I mean, if you didn't know better, it looked like he just purposely threw it 20 yards to the wrong place.
And there were some plays where it's like, look, he did that on purpose. Like there's no way he would throw that on, it was
crazy.
But, and then
the receivers, when the ball did come to them, they just it's like step back, like they were.
Half of them would step back, or even instead of go to catch it with their hands, they almost batted it down, or not even use their hands, like turn the other way. And I hate to be a conspiracy theory, but you hear about the professional, excuse me, the professional basketball players. They just had that big thing came out with Chauncey
with
Billups,
coaches and players.
The coaches and players were actually betting on the games, and they were setting up where they would take themselves out. They would miss shots on purpose. They would do things that could impact the results of the game so that they or the people betting on it would it come out in their favor. But I tell you what, Carson and I had to talk about that last night, Tony. Like watching that game was like, I sure would hope and pray it wouldn't be our Detroit Lions. And, but I tell you, boy, after watching some of those passes, even some of the runs, even it just sure makes you question and wonder what the heck is going on with our Detroit Lions.
Yeah, it does. It does. And I don't have to wonder, though, about my Vikings. We're just not good this year. I mean, we're just not that great this year.
Well,
JJ's stats were JJ McCarthy were terrible yesterday.
Well, it's weird because the week before he did so well. He had a pretty darn good showing.
He did. So it's weird. A lot of these younger quarterbacks are hot and cold,
Yeah.
but Goff, you expect as a veteran and a star player, I mean, he should do better than he did. That's for
He
sure.
sh Carson got all excited when he saw him wearing gloves in warmups because he said, "Oh, the last time Goff wore gloves, he did awesome. He just was phenomenal. He's going to be great in gloves." And after about the first quarter, I'm like, "Carson, call Goff and tell him take the gloves off. He's
it's time
horrible."
to it's time
Yeah,
to take the gloves off. Yeah. Yeah, so to speak.
be interesting
Well,
to see how they rebound this week. Both the Vikings and the
yeah,
Lions, and of course my Spartans. We were down
your
at the game.
Spartans.
Yep, Amy and I and the kids were down at the game, and we did a little tailgating ahead of time, which was beautiful weather for that. A little windy,
Yeah.
but beautiful day. The game was
I
well,
love the Spartans, but
it started out great. So I don't know if you saw it at all, but we
I didn't.
stopped them. They got the ball. That we stopped them on their first set of downs, and then our very first play from scrimmage, we get a touchdown. Very first play from scrimmage,
Awesome.
touchdown MSU. Everybody thought the game, and after that, it just kind of went blue, right
Yeah.
in the tank. And again, a lot of questionable calls. Not only from a coaching standpoint, was a lot of the calls were very questionable. Like, why is Michigan State calling the calls they're calling when it's 3rd and 2? That's a call you wouldn't have made, or when they're 3rd and 7. I mean, they were just making some extremely questionable, the last couple games actually, extremely questionable play calls.
Mm.
And then the execution of those plays, sometimes from some of those players, sure makes you question, like, did they really mean to do that? Are they really giving it their all? Do they really care? And I sure hope and pray they do. But again, now you look at all these college athletes, Tony, with the transfer portal and getting paid all this money, and it sure changes the college athletic scene. It changes the game. These athletes play at a different level, good or bad, when all of a sudden they have their own agents and they have their own
It's
team.
not for the good, in my opinion.
I don't think
I think it ruined college sports, all of that.
I would agree.
Football.
I would agree. I mean, to me, it takes the college athlete. You remember these kids are 17, 18, 19, 20 years old, coming right out of high school, and they're getting paid hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. And the purpose, again, remember, they're in college. It's football is a sport. It's a game. It's a privilege to be able to play as you're going to college to be something else in life with a degree, right? Get educated first. And unfortunately, I truly believe it's truly changed the game. As a matter of fact, if any of my listeners or viewers out there, if you have any pros and cons you think about the whole new college football system with the portal and these college players getting paid, I'd love to hear from you. Tony and I would love to field some of your questions and concerns, or even just your comments. So maybe you agree with Tony, maybe you disagree with me or Tony. Either way, please feel free to pick up the phone, give us a call, and let us know, hey, yes, I agree with you, or no, I think you guys are totally out in left field. Here's why I disagree, Tony and Jason, and maybe set us straight, right? Maybe educate Tony and I on what the heck's going on, and why are we seeing these players do or not do what we think they should do. And give us your opinion, listeners and viewers, on how you think this the portal and paying college athletes, how that is changing college sports in front of our eyes today. And
the ability to leave and move to another college just for money, not good, right?
Yeah, not good when, again, ultimately you're going there for an education.
You're going there for an education. The college, they shouldn't be paid by the college. They shouldn't be able to be go to another school and jump around like that just to get more money from a team.
Who's going to pay me more? Right? Who's going to pay me more?
Yeah, that shouldn't be about that. However, I mean, scholarships, yes. Actual pay, no.
Absolutely, I believe.
And then I do think there needed to be a law where if there's a huge college star, an athlete in college who's huge, right, and his picture is used on EA Sports, like a college basketball player, the Final Four video game, or the college football video game on EA Sports when you buy the game. If they're using their likeness to sell merchandise, they should get a cut of the merchandise or a fee. Yes, I mean, these college students, if they're making money off jersey sales, if they're making money off merchandise or anything like that, the college athletes should get a cut. But as far as pay beyond that, no. And as far as being able to, this whole, you can just jump to whatever school's going to offer you more money, then it's not it's not collegiate sports anymore. It's professional.
Correct.
And
I agree.
that's not good for anybody. I mean, that's not good.
Yep, and I guess I think, and I look at it like you say, if their name is on Madden football or their face and their image and basketball, football, whatever it might be, maybe there needs to be some leeway there where they're allowed to have some of those royalties. When I look at the jerseys, money. I think all the way back to look. I mean, 10, 15, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, you had stars, you had Magic Johnson. There was probably never any more basketball jerseys that Michigan State sold than Magic Johnson jerseys. Yet he never got a penny. He didn't get any of that money. So why now does a star, because they're that good and they sell more jerseys? Why? It's to me, it's
well, that's a good
player should not get the money for that. Now, if the player has an endorsement with Nike or an endorsement with Madden football or the esports, or whatever, that to me, that's a different story. I think there maybe should be some form of benefit there, but I would love for, I know this whole first segment's been eaten up about us talking about football and it's been kind of negative. And again, I apologize to my viewers and listeners, but here we are. It's almost the end of November. Tony and I got beat up this weekend between our Lions and our Bears, and my Spartans have been getting beat up. I'd love to hear from our listeners and viewers. Tony, if we could get some calls, if we could get some feedback, some emails, let us know, listeners and viewers, what you think about what's going on with the Lions, what's going on with the Vikings, if you pay attention. Help Tony out and his team over there, the Spartans. And then, of course, if you want to comment at all on some of this stuff we're talking about with these college athletes being paid, the transfer portal, by all means, give a call, send us some emails. Love to hear your feedback. Love to get some two-way conversations going. And, hey, maybe you guys can help educate Tony and I on here's why you're seeing what you're seeing. Here's why it's doing what it's doing. And maybe you can help open our eyes up to it is a better thing for, to me, it comes down to the player first as far as an athlete, as a student. I truly believe those kids are there as students first. They're an athlete and a player second. And then it's the university third, right? So to me, that's the kind of but if anybody has disagreements or agreements with us, please let Tony and I know. We'd be happy to field calls or emails and have a little conversation with you.
Yeah. Well, I think that's great, Jason. And I encourage our listeners to do that. I'm sure there are a lot of opinions out there, opinions on collegiate sports or athletes and teams. So that's awesome. It's always fun to chat about that before we jump into our main topic, which today is Social Security, the new COLA change and other changes coming up for next year, what you need to know about Social Security, when to file, all of that good stuff coming up. But first, we're going to give away 10 copies of Jason's book. It's called Empower Your Retirement. Look at right there. It is Empower Your Retirement. Plan for the best, prepare for the worst. You want to be prepared. And Jason, along with your dad, wrote that book. It's fantastic. And you can get it no charge, no obligation, no postage. We'll send it to you. And the next 10 people that contact Jason in his office there at Great Lakes Investment Advisors will get sent a copy of that book. All you have to do is call 989-835-7203. That's 989-835-7203. And you're listening to your Financial Empower Hour. I'm your co-host, Tony Shore. And our host, Jason Cryderman, is here to talk about Social Security. Now, the big change in Social Security, of course, has been the COLA increase, or the cost of living adjustment.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, it was a big one. I mean, so it's important we point out what that means. COLA, that means cost of living adjustment, Tony, as you said. And a lot of different what we'll call like expenses or income might be affected by inflation, and cost of living adjustment usually is to help us stay in pace with or ahead of inflation. And COLA is nothing new. Automatic COLAs began with Social Security back in 1975. And before that, Congress had to approve the benefit increases manually, like individually each time. In 1972, the amendments made annual adjustments automatic in response to the real high inflation of the 1970s. So for those of you that were around and back then, think about inflation early in the 1970s. It was very high, out of until they passed in 1975, when they decided to make COLA automatic. Social Security didn't have that automatic increase. Some years they had zero, some years higher than normal, but we did get a pretty nice boost this year. There was a 2.8% COLA adjustment or cost of living adjustment on Social Security going into effect in 2026, Tony. It's a modest increase. It translates to about $56 per month for the average retiree and $88 more per month for married couples. So is it going to be the highest increase ever within Social Security? No, absolutely not. Inflation currently running about 3%. So COLA increase of 2.8. It's going to help. It's going to get a few more bucks in the pocket, but $56 per month for a single individual, $88 for a married couple. Yeah. I mean, it's not designed to pay all the bills, but it's designed to try to help keep pace with the rising costs or inflation of goods.
This is where we can mention the government shutdown.
Absolutely.
We should probably mention that because that had an impact. The announcement of what the COLA increase was going to be was delayed because of the government shutdown, right? But we're out of the shutdown finally, thank God, right?
Yeah, well, that's one thing we really should have started off with. I mean, and
Yeah.
that's probably good. I'm sure within the next couple of weeks here, or with iron kind of winding down this year or ramping up into next year, we're going to spend a lot of focus in some of our shows and maybe even entire shows on the government shutdown. What happened? Why did they shut down again? What were the goods and bads through the shutdown? Because it was a longer than average shutdown. And we had a show a few weeks ago where we had Keith on from Grady Investments talking about the average length of these shutdowns, what the market does during the shutdowns, what the market does after the shutdowns. And so we're going to kind of reflect back upon this probably towards the end of this year, beginning of next year. Okay, what was that shutdown all about? The goods and the bads, and then what is the market and the economy looking like post shutdown? But there's a lot of one of the biggest things is you're absolutely right, Tony. When the government was shut down, there were no statistics. So the Bureau of Labor and Statistics employees, that they weren't working. So, same thing when the Feds met to cut interest rates, they were making blind decisions because they didn't have the data in front of them. And so any more decisions that were made were either made blindly or couldn't be made. And I think that probably had a little bit of an impact because those labor statistic employees, they were briefly recalled to finalize the CPI data so that they could look at the COLA formula. And so it's not like they were working full time. They were studying the data. They knew what was going on. It was like, hey, you know what? Let's get back together. Let's hurry up, look at this data. Let's make a decision. I'm glad they made a positive decision to increase the COLA, but I think with that government shutdown, they were working on lack of information, lack of data, just lack of work and production as a whole leading up to and right before they made that decision. So yeah, that's good to point out. That was a big deal, that government shutdown.
Yeah. And it even delayed the announcement of this cost of living increase. Now, you mentioned that inflation is currently running around 3%. 2.8 gets us close to that, but I know that actual inflation, that's the government's inflation number, 3%. I know actual inflation for healthcare costs is higher than 3% typically, especially this year. If you have to pay for, and Medicare doesn't cover everything. For seniors, there are costs to healthcare, and those costs have gone up more. But every little bit helps. So thank God we do get at least some COLA. And now past COLA has swung wildly in the amounts. I mean, even in the last 10, 20 years, we've seen some extremes from how much COLA has been or how little it's been, right?
Yeah, we really have. I mean, historically, when you look at COLA again, up until the early 1970s into 1975, there was no automatic COLA or cost of living adjustment to Social Security. It was just kind of, hey, they would get together and talk about it and talk about inflation and should we give people a pay raise or not?
Sure.
But then they became a little bit more consistent after 1975, a little more automatic. But you're absolutely right, Tony. The swings have been drastic. We saw as low as 0% increase in 2016. Meaning your exact same amount of Social Security income you had in 2015 was the exact same dollar amount in 2016. Now, everybody understands and realizes, well, does that mean there was no inflation? Does that mean bread, water, milk, housing, insurances. Nothing. Gasoline didn't cost more in 2016 than it did in 2015. No, we all know costs go up every single year. So it's crazy when you think about, costs went up, but there was zero increase at all. Yet we swing to 2023, just 7 years past that, and the COLA increase was 8.7%. Went from 0 7 years later to almost 9% increase in Social Security payments. That's a huge jump. What an awesome income influx for retirees. Because when we think about Social Security, that it could provide for anywhere from maybe 10 to 50% or more of your retirement income, of your monthly income that you need. And so to have almost a 9% increase in that paycheck, that was a huge year. That was a really big year. But more recent, we've seen a lot of smaller increases. In 2024, the COLA increase on Social Security was 3.2%, Tony. In 2025, it was 2.5%. And in 2026, now we're seeing 2.8%. And that really signals a more stable economy. So the market didn't go from, or the COLA didn't go from 0 to 6 to 2 to 8.7. I mean, I think the higher swings, or the further the gap in those swings that you see, that can kind of maybe signal instability, right? So I think if we stay more in that 2.5 to 3.5 range of COLA per year, might be just a little bit less than inflation right now, but it does show a sign of a stable or more stable economy. And again, I think that's a positive thing for consumers and for the markets as a whole.
Yeah, I think you're right in that 8.7% increase from 23 a couple of years ago. That spoiled us. And I think people were kind of, oh, okay, we can get this kind of increase and things are still costing a lot. So people assume they're still going to get that kind of COLA because, hey, prices have went up exponentially. However, that's just not realistic. It's going to be in the 2 to 3% more often than not. So, yeah, I think a lot of people with housing costs and healthcare costs feel, the 2.8 falls short, especially compared to that 8.7. But inflation, the CPI, the inflation that they use was much higher back in 2023. Things are still going up, and unfortunately, they didn't come back down. But current inflation rates are lower, and that's what they base it on. So let's take another quick break here, Jason, and give our listeners a chance. You need to work with a trusted financial professional. So you're offering, you've set aside some time for our listeners or viewers out there, if they want to set up a no charge, no obligation consultation, just to ask you some questions, right? Get a financial plan in place or get a second opinion on where they're at with their retirement income plans, their future plans, whether you're already retired or you're still in your working years, you need a plan in place. The sooner, the better. So give Jason and his team there at Great Lakes a call. All you have to do is pick up the phone. It's 989-835-7203. That's 989-835-7203 to set up a no charge, no obligation consultation with Jason and his team at Great Lakes, and we'll be right back. This is your Financial Empower Hour. I'm your co-host, Tony Shore. I'm here with our host, Jason Cryderman. Jason, we're talking about Social Security. You talked about the COLA adjustment for next year, for 2026. Starting in January, people will see a 2.8% increase. And we talked about a lot, the historical context and inflation. Now, what else do you want to talk about here? I know that COLA is how is COLA calculated? It's using the CPI-W, right?
Yeah, it's an interesting calculation, and some of these things get kind of confusing because think about the government has these equations, and there's all these different variables, and then they use a lot of CPI. Well, what is that? Well, that's the Consumer Price Index, and the CPI-W is used as it measures the price changes for urban wage earners and clerical workers. So that means CPI workers measures the price changes for urban wage earners and clerical workers. So the Social Security Administration, Tony, what they do is they compare the average prices from July to September each year to the same period the previous year. So they take a look at all those urban wage earners, clerical workers, what were their wages or average prices from July to September last year to July to December this year, and that helps determine what that goes into determining the COLA. Will they have an increase, and how big or how small might that cost of living adjustment increase be? They also have that, some advocate for the CPI-E index to be used, which they say is a better reflects the cost that older Americans by weighing healthcare more heavily. But it hasn't been adopted since COLA also applies to disability and survivor benefits. So when we look at Social Security, some people say, gee, Social Security is only for retirees, the older generations. You should only use the CPI-E index, which better reflects the costs that older Americans have by their healthcare costs weighing more heavily. But again, not the elderly on Social Security. We have a lot of younger people on Social Security as well, as it applies to disability Social Security and even survivor benefits disability. So it's really hard just to use the CPI-E index when we talk about kind of age-based, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. And the government always has to complicate things.
No, Tony, come on. Isn't the government here to help us and make it easier?
The CPI-W, and then some advocate. I've heard of the CPI-E,
yeah,
which is another price index that they could use. And people say that's going to better reflect the cost for older Americans, right?
Yeah, and I just mentioned that. I mean, it does better reflect the cost for older Americans because it takes a weighting of their healthcare costs more heavily into consideration. However, they haven't adopted that to apply to COLA because it also applies to younger people on Social Security, whether it's disability. A lot of people are on SSDI, disability income from Social Security at younger ages, and of course, survivor benefits. If somebody loses a spouse, you get Social Security survivor benefits. So it's hard to, you got to look at Social Security as a bigger pool, not just 62 and older as we're in retirement, but maybe some disability younger, not only disability, what is it trying to say? Survivor benefit. Yeah, disability.
Survivor benefits.
Yep.
Sure. There are other benefits besides senior or retirement benefits.
That's right.
That you can get through Social Security, but the majority of Social Security benefits are for seniors. So, but you point out a great point that I didn't think about. That's why I was for the CPI-E and mentioned that again, because I really do believe that might be a viable option at some point. Now, but I mean, I think they don't do it because they'd also be paying higher benefits to others who it might not apply to. But hey, higher benefits all the way around. I think it would increase the COLA increase each year for everyone. So I think it would still be a good thing. Now, let's get into the nuts and bolts of Social Security in the time we have left and just go over a few of the things that people need to know about. What about, I had a neighbor that, a lot of people swear got to take Social Security at 62 because you get more checks that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he thought that because he was still working though full time, making good money, 6 figures, a year. Making really good money. But he filed when he was 62, even though he still had a full time job. That's probably not a good idea, though, right?
Well, it may or may not be. Now, a couple of those variables in the equation that you just told me. First of all, you took it at age 62, which you can take Social Security as early as age 62.
Right.
You need to know that it may cut your benefits, your payments by up to 30%, which could also cut spousal benefits later by up to maybe another 35%.
Yikes.
So think if you take early, you are going to get a smaller payment. Now, the other variable that you said your neighbor mentioned was, but I'm going to get more paychecks. If I take at 62, rather than wait till full retirement age or even till age 70, I'll get more paychecks. Yes, they'll be smaller, but they'll add up more money over time. And that's true too. I will stress and emphasize, Tony, right now, like I have many times on this show, whether it be different types of investments, different types of risk, different types of contributions, different types of opportunities and timeframes of when you take your Social Security should be based 100% on what's in your best interest. Not because it's what your neighbor did, not because it's what your work friend did, but every decision you make should be 100% because it's in your best interest. And I highly, highly encourage all my listeners and viewers, sit down with a trusted fiduciary advisor to help you determine what's in your best interest, especially when it comes to something like retirement. Retirement's new. It's uncharted waters. It's not something you've been doing with your current advisor or your current investments for the last 20 or 30 years. It's new. A lot of times it takes a new philosophy. It takes new management. It might take new tools, new investments. Why? Because you're looking for new objectives and new outcomes now. Quite often, it takes a totally new advisor, so you can help you make sure you're accomplishing your goals. But one of the things that we do is we have what's called a Social Security maximization report, Tony, that we have software we can run all these different alternative options of at what age is your optimal age for you to take Social Security with all the other variables into place. So for example, if we would have plugged your neighbor in there, we just said, hey, you're 62, you want to take Social Security, but you're currently working. Well, that's a big, big variable in this equation, Tony, because if you are currently working and you're earning more than they allow you to, and in 2026, for every at $1 withheld for every $2 earned, over $24,480 annually before retirement. So what I just said there for your neighbor was, wait a minute, Mr. Neighbor, you're making more than the annual threshold for Social Security. You're making quite a bit more than that. So if you take Social Security now at 62, and you can, and yes, you'll get more paychecks, but about 50% of it will be withheld. $1 will be withheld for every $2 you earn over the $24,480 in 2006. That's a big, big, big number.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. I mean, basically, he'll just be not getting it. He makes enough over that he won't be getting that money for a while. So he could have waited then.
Yeah.
Since he's not going to get it anyway, let it roll up because it rolls up quite a bit.
Correct.
From 62 to his full retirement age. In fact, he didn't end up retiring until 70. So he could have let it roll up to 70 and would have got a lot of money. He locked in a low amount for no reason, really.
And again, I've been doing this for 23 years, Tony, and I've helped literally thousands and thousands of investors and families determine what's the optimal time and method to take my pension or my Social Security. And sometimes it is take it at age 62. That 100% makes sense for some people. Yeah. However, sometimes it's, you need to wait till full retirement age of 65, 66, and some odd months. Sometimes that is the best option, but it's not right for everybody. Yeah. And sometimes the best option is wait till age 70. Now, for nobody in these 23 years have I ever told them to wait past 70 to take Social Security, because after 70, Tony, it quits growing. It goes stagnant. You might as well take it by age 70. But from age 62 to age 70, literally there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different ways and timings of when and how you could take your Social Security. And all those different options need to be 100% in your best interest of why you make that decision.
Right.
Not simply because, well, somebody said I should never take at 62. I should wait till age 70. And so that's when I'm taking.
Sure.
But then you wait till age 70 and find out you didn't have any longevity in your family and everybody in your family died but before they turned 71. Maybe you're not going to get enough paychecks long enough. You're not going to live till 82, 83 or 4 to break even. So different variables for different families.
Sure.
To help you determine what's truly in your best interest.
Yeah. So when you file, what I'm taking away from this is when you file, it makes a huge difference. And we'll talk about that some more when we get back, and how it affects your spouse if you file early, and the numbers we're looking at, and some other things about Social Security we need to know. But we have to take one more quick break here first to give away more copies of your book. We're going to give away 10 more copies of Empower Your Retirement. There it is. If you're watching the YouTube video, it's wandering around. Jason is holding it up. Empower Your Retirement. I love it. And you just need to call. There's no postage cost, no costs at all, no charge, no obligation. Get a copy of the book, 989-835-7203. Just be one of the first 10 people to contact the office you have to say you heard it on the show. I heard it on Jason's show. Call 989-835-7203. You can also visit the website at GreatLakesInvestmentAdvisors.com. And this is your Financial Empower Hour. I am Tony Shore, the co-host. I'm here with the host, the man with the plan, once again, Jason Cryderman. We've talked a lot about Social Security, and there are a few other things we can talk about. What else about Social Security, Jason, do you want to touch on today?
Well, you mentioned there in that last segment, Tony, about how it might impact your spouse. And I think when you take Social Security is not only a decision for you, but if you are married, it is a decision that's going to impact your spouse as well. So this is a bigger picture again, right? That if you listen to what your neighbor did, he took Social Security at age 62. Well, if he wasn't married, but you are, or vice versa, he or she is not married or is married and you aren't, well, there's different timings of when they should versus you should take Social Security, because ultimately when you choose to take it will have a direct impact on how much money you get per month for the rest of your life, as well as your spouse's life. So definitely need to take into consideration both sources of income and both timing, because delaying benefits till age 70, that can raise your monthly income by about 8% per year beyond full retirement age. So think about from age 62 to full retirement age, depending on when your birth year is. Social Security then grows between about 3.5% and 8%. Once you hit full retirement age, it grows by a guaranteed 8% per year from full retirement age till 70. Well, that's a total of roughly 28% more claiming after full retirement age by simply letting it grow. But remember, you have to live till 70. And then you have to live long enough after 70 when you're getting 28% more in your monthly income. You have to live long enough to make up for the money you went without. So there is a break-even point. So again, longevity.
And it can be different for everybody. This is why you need to have that maximization report run and work with a professional. Absolutely. Because it gets complicated. I know the software you use does over 20,000 different calculations, spousal benefits. So I think that's huge. Now, speaking of huge, let's go back to claiming early. I read recently that the majority of Americans file at 62. And that's because they've been told, hey, that's when, a neighbor or a family member or a coworker says, you got to file at 62. That's when I filed. And they think they're going to get more checks. But claiming early permanently reduces benefits. By how much?
So it does. Now, I will tell you this statistically, when you run a lot of these numbers. So there's two things we look at. Mathematically, the math does not lie. The longer you wait, the more you're going to get, the more income you'll have. Okay. And then the longer you live, the more. However, there's a lot of other variables that come into play, such as bridging the gap. Some people use what they call Social Security bridge as a strategy, which means they draw from their retirement savings, like their IRAs or their 401ks, for the income that they need on a monthly basis while they're delaying taking their Social Security. That could help maximize the long-term benefits. It could help increase the amount you're going to get for that much longer, not only for you, but for your spouse. Right. Because claiming early does permanently reduce your benefits. Permanently, Tony. And that's important to point out, not only for you, but for your spouse. So starting income of Social Security age 62 may cut your payments by up to 30%. A third. That's a huge cut. And it could cut the spousal benefits up to 35%.
So if you pass and your spouse it takes the higher of the two and it's yours, and if it's typically women outlive the men, and typically women have taken time out of their work to raise families, correct, in a lot of cases anyway, not always, not trying to stereotype, but that puts them in a bad situation because they're going to be relying on your higher Social Security amount. Wow, 35%. That's a lot. Now, we're almost out of time, but before we go, the final point with Social Security is somebody like you, a financial services professional, you can add major value for people here, can't you?
Well, I think when you work with any type of trusted professional in your life, you hope they bring added value to you, right? Being a
Sure.
fiduciary advisor kind of puts me at a position where I must do by law what's 100% in the best interest of the people I'm working for. And that's what really sets me apart in the industry from being a fiduciary, maybe from those that are not held to the fiduciary standard. But either way, yes, I think it's very important, Tony. You work with people that are professionals in those fields. I'll talk about estate planning. You can easily probably go online and do your own will and do your own power of attorney documents. But are you an attorney, or should you entrust in an attorney that's their job, that's their profession, their background? CPA accountant is no different. We can all probably do our own taxes, but are we 100% make sure we're maximizing our benefits and not going to get penalized or missing out on something? Again, I know enough about legal stuff and taxes to be kind of scary and dangerous that I know I entrust in those people, in those individuals. Same thing I'm doing the brakes on my car. You and I, Tony, could easily Google how to fix the brakes on my car. We could probably do it just fine. But then I remember I'm putting my wife and my kids in that car. Yeah. Am I the best one that should be working on the brakes under that vehicle? Same thing when you work with a trusted advisor. If you work with a trusted fiduciary advisor, by law, they are upheld to looking out for your best interest, period. Yep. So I do believe it's very important simply to try to do the best you can do, but work with trusted advisors in your lives that'll hold you hand in hand to help you get there with the highest probability of success.
I think that's great, Jason. A great show. So, listeners, to get that Social Security maximization report run, all you have to do, there's no charge, no obligation. Just call to set up a consultation with Great Lakes, Jason and the team there at Great Lakes Investment Advisors. You can go to set up that meeting to greatlakesinvestmentadvisors.com or call 989-835-7203. That's 989-835-7203. Great show today, Jason. Great to see you. And that does it for today's episode of your Financial Empower Hour.